My name is Damian. Welcome to Portland. This is America's security guard. When I first moved to Portland in 2020, that was the first time that I've ever done any martial arts. And I started at 10th Planet. This was right when the pandemic was kicking off. So I got a couple of months in there, and then, everything shut down. I was working for the security company, a different security company, and we were doing the riots. So everything just kind of fell apart in 2020. So after about, I'd say 3 months, I was completely out of it. So it wasn't until last August when I came here that I've started to get really consistent with it. I mean, I literally live 3 minutes away from here and just made the decision that this is what I need for my job, what I want to do for myself, and I needed something. I really did need something. So I just decided that I was going to pour as much of my time and effort into this as possible and see how far I could get with it.
Questions on those two sweeps? All right, 1, 2. Let's go play, guys. I mean, I've been teaching martial arts my whole life. I started coaching wrestling when I was still in college. And when I got out of college, I coached Division I wrestling for a while, and then I coached the Rio Games, and I coached the Tokyo Games. So I was 8 years as the national coach, and then worked a lot with fundamental kids, developmental age groups, and I was managing all programs, but I was focusing mostly on preparing our teams to bring home medals for the United States and at the world level, whether it was Olympic Games or the World Championships. But I've been coaching here now at my gym here for 25 years.
Man, on a personal level, I mean, more than anything, it's given me an outlet. Like my job is so stressful and it's so difficult. I deal with the worst common denominator every single day. I see the worst in people. I see people at the worst point in their life. I deal with homeless community, people who are suffering from mental illness. Even where I live, like right down the street, like there's drugs and there's homelessness and there's crime, like literally outside my door. So, since moving to Portland, if I can be 100% honest, I haven't had a lot of positivity. And so this gives me an hour per day or however many hours per week where I can be around people who are, excited and happy, and we're all pushing towards the same goal. And I have a team, I have a coach that's, phenomenal. So it's really just been an outlet and giving me like a place to just, honestly, just breathe, as crazy as that sounds when somebody's trying to choke you.
I love martial arts. I love learning how to fight, whether it was through wrestling or jiu-jitsu or MMA. It doesn't really matter, the fighting art. Being a young man that was riding horses and ponies, you get picked on a lot. And so I took up fighting instead. And so I could defend myself and protect myself. And I want men to know how to fight. And especially, I think my priority now is really working with the younger generations, the little guys, growing them up. I mean, the skill acquisition that little kids have versus adults it's light years apart. They acquire skills so much faster. Fighting is essential. It's part of life. And so teaching people how to do it properly and giving them the confidence to go out there and know that they can win with the skills they have. And I want to teach them the proper way to do things. And then there's also just figure it out and tough it out sometimes.
So for me, I'm 46. I'm quite certain I'm the oldest person out there other than the coach. And so a lot of what I've learned over the last 6 to 7 months is just being calm under pressure. At this point, I'm not really in a position to where I'm able to, defeat people a lot. So what my position here has been is just being comfortable being uncomfortable. And, very early in the development of what I was doing, I had a really hard time with that. And I realized that those two things were so compatible because on the street, when someone is angry or aggressive or upset, or somebody is frustrated and they want to fight, you're uncomfortable in that scenario, in that situation. So everything that I've learned here about just being able to survive in that environment has totally carried over into working downtown and Old Town and some of these places where every single day someone is threatening me or trying to fight me or upset about something. It's really carried over. It's been very helpful.
Yeah, I think the things you learn from martial arts is you learn to be humble and know that, the gifts that you have to be able to do this are from God, and you're blessed to have these gifts. And I mean, the biggest thing that has brought to my life is fun, enjoyment, pleasure. I enjoy what I do. When I go to work every day, I see people grow, I see them improve, I see them get better.
Restraint is so important, especially for us working for Echelon, because we're armed officers. So, the responsibility of carrying a firearm and having the ability through the state to potentially use that if need be, like, that's a huge responsibility. So I think the biggest issue for a lot of security guards is that it's a very low barrier of entry to be an armed officer. But the responsibility of carrying that firearm and not using it inappropriately, or putting yourself in a situation where you're potentially intimidating somebody or going to that when you don't necessarily have to, that's a huge issue. I think that if more people would put themselves in a training environment, and unfortunately for armed officers, there's not a lot of training in terms of de-escalation. You really need to put yourself in these types of environments where you're kind of going through that stress inoculation, so that when you're on the street, you're able to operate with more restraint.
The most important thing that I've gotten out of this sport, whether it's been wrestling or the fighting or the jiu-jitsu, is the great relationships with the incredible people that are all like-minded, warrior spirit, warrior heart, and they're humble men because they can fight. They're not guys that have to fight, that are looking for fights. They're guys that are capable of being warriors, but they're just humble men that are out there doing their daily thing, but they have the ability to be very violent if they needed it. And I'm happy to teach those guys how to be really violent if they need it, because I think that's something that builds a lot of confidence in men, when you know that you can walk the streets and defend yourself. And I like sharing that with the kids, because we got a really poor community here, where 95% of the residents in this community are under the poverty level, just in this neighborhood alone. So we're dealing with kids that really need that confidence boost, and that martial arts does that for them. They learn some skills and they're like, man, look what I'm capable of doing. And these aren't the kids that are looking for fights. They're not bullying people, but they're having confidence. Their grades are getting better. They're showing up to school because they know if they don't go to school, they don't get to train that night. So changing the kids' lives, changing the community and the neighborhood, just one individual at a time.
The biggest thing is that MMA in an arena is sanctioned, and MMA on the street has way more damaging consequences, not just for your health and your safety, the other person. And when you're in an arena, that person doesn't have access to weapons. Any types of potential fighting or grappling on the streets, especially in Portland, everybody has a knife. A lot of people have firearms, and the people who are at the worst part of their life, they have no qualms about hurting or killing you. We had a private security guard that worked for a company that got killed, 2 or 3 years ago. We've had private security guards who have found themselves in situations where unjustly they've killed somebody else. So it's completely different. There's no rules, there's no sanction when you're on the street. And that's why I think it's so important for private security guards to put themselves in this environment, to understand what this can do, not only on your side of it, but the other person that's potentially fighting you.
Position, but
I see what he means.
Well, I think the biggest thing that I see is people are afraid to make mistakes. They don't want to fail. And failure is part of the whole process. Failure is a big part of this process. Until you try it about 20 ways that don't work, before you discover the way that works. And Damon could probably tell you a little more about that. He tries to muscle things because he's a big, strong dude. And when he realizes he gets that position right, he's like, wow, that was easy. It just like opens his eyes and he wants to learn more. But he's going to be a lot more efficient. He's going to have a lot more cardio. And just be more effective in all his arts, just being here, but it's time on the mats and it's consistently, and we're really happy to have him here because he's a very consistent student. He's in there in the mornings when he's got availability, or he's gonna be in here, whether it's morning or evening. He's gonna show up and train because he knows that he needs it for his job, and that's really important to him. He wants to perform his job to the best of his ability, wants to be in shape, and he wants to be skilled and competent.
Give me a stand up, give me a check, give me a stand up. Look at you, buddy, that was awesome. You're on top. I don't care if you're stuck in the dark.
I think understanding when you need to escalate a situation, when you need to de-escalate a situation. The most difficult part of that is that if you've never put yourself in a situation where you're dealing with heightened stress, how do you know when you need to escalate or de-escalate? Stress is stress. Whether you're frightened, whether you're angry, whether you're excited, that same stress level can pop up. That's why I think a lot of people need to put themselves in situations where, you know, they're maybe not the toughest person in the room, where maybe they're not as strong as they think they are, so that you can understand how to manage that stress, but also be aware that there are people out there who are more skilled than you, more able to, you know, potentially harm you than maybe you think. And that's one of the things that's really missing in private security. I think in law enforcement, that's something that they're aware of with defensive tactics, but by not having something that's mandated in the private security sphere, a lot of people don't understand that. And so for me, if I can advocate for anything, it's for more officers to do something like this.
Look, so he's pulling me. I cannot do that if he's pulling me off that base. But if we stop and we're just like, oh, what do I gotta do next? Right now, I just want to clamp.
I'm 46 years old. And if I would have stayed with this in 2020, 5 years later, I would be so much further ahead. For me, just to come here and to train, it's very difficult. You know, I'm exhausted, I'm tired, my body doesn't heal the way that it used to. So if you're younger, if you're in your 20s, you're in your 30s, you know, the earlier you start, the further you're gonna get in this, and I just can't stress it enough. But even if you are older, if you're working in this environment, you need to be doing this. So no excuses. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe and become a part of Opsec Media Group. Remember, this community is all about us. It's not about me. It's about all of us as private security guards and everybody who's in the industry. See you guys on the next episode. Be great.